Is going on, Clippers fans? Welcome to season 2, episode 42 of Clips and Dip. I am Chuck Mockler, joined by Adam Oslin and William Updike. If you're listening to us, thank you so much for listening to us. If you're watching us over on YouTube at youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast, we got to 1,000 subscribers. So thank you very much for subscribing. We could always use more. We do giveaways on there. It's very fun.
March to 5K now. March
The
to
March to
5K.
the March to 5K. We're gonna do it. Today we got a pretty fun episode. We're talking Paul George's level of play. A bunch of trade rumors have kind of kicked up for the Clippers, and then there's been some cool Intuit press about the wall lately that we want to talk about. And as Adam Oslin pointed out this weekend, we are so close to getting that Powell Rangers nickname into the larger zeitgeist that it deserves. We will talk about that. Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Good to be with you guys. Thanks to everyone helping us get to 1K on the YouTube subs. Appreciate you guys. What was the last episode we had? A little double dip the other night, Chuck?
Yes,
after the Clippers' victory over the OKC Thunder. Some
Mhm.
thought that was the best win of the season. It was certainly one of the more entertaining ones. Can't argue with that.
That was a fun time. No Zoo. We're going to talk about that problem too, and kind of the encouraging stuff from Mason Plumlee. Will, how are you doing on this overcast Los Angeles evening?
Doing well, man. Yeah, last time we spoke, the Clippers had a great win, and now just a lot of downtime in between. So, yeah, so that's all right too. Not sure what to do with myself.
Yeah, like it is weird. I'm like, there's 4 days off. Clippers don't play until a brunch battle at 12:30 this Sunday, so I guess it's
we'll talk about it later, but any extra time to get Big Zoo back on the court, I think is going to be great.
I feel like I got to pull receipts on us complaining about the schedule. Like maybe it's not as bad. I don't know.
Man, I would
just
love that.
Wait, buddy. Just wait.
What is there, like 17 games coming up in a month?
Oh man, that is horrifyingly close. I think about it every single day I wake up, and every single night I go to bed. They did, so it is crazy. This is the last time we'll talk about March. This episode. I looked it up. They actually played 17 games in, I think, January 2 seasons ago. But that was when Amir was going on that crazy run when he was like 50, 40, 90. So could happen again.
Yeah, why not? They're going to need everybody, all hands on deck, and they got Amir back into the rotation a lot sooner than I think most people thought. It's been a good thing. A lot of timely. You mentioned Ivica Zubac and the timing of the injury, and I guess we can get into more of that in a little bit, but I'll just tease that out. That there have been some things, some blessings in disguise for this Clippers team so far this season.
Are you alluding to Mason Plumlee starting over Ivica Zubac?
I am against that in many ways.
In many ways. All right, we will get to that debate, I guess.
It's not a debate. There's no debate there.
In a bit, but we got to talk about Paul George is on an incredible level. Adam Oslin was sharing some stats recently about his kind of catch and shoot stuff. But before we get into that, I was looking at the Clippers stats, and it's kind of insane how close he and Kawhi are this year in terms of their averages. Kawhi is averaging 23.8 points. Paul George is averaging 23.9. Kawhi is averaging 5.5 boards. PG is averaging 6.1. And they're one of that. Kawhi's averaging 3.7 assists. Paul George is averaging 3.6. They average the same amount of steals. And Kawhi's taking just one more field goal attempt than Paul George. This is very cool. It's obvious it's helping the Clippers. But it's cool to see them doing it in such different ways. Right? Like, we don't think of them as having similar games. Like, they're both elite, but Paul George is shooting and stuff. It's really cool to see them match up like this, I think.
Well, it's interesting too, because I just feel like we see, like, Kawhi is at a consistent kind of level all the time, and Paul George has like these insane highs, and not that he has like wild lows for the most part. He's had like one game in like the last 15 where he didn't have 20 points, 14 games. Right. But yeah, it just like stylistically, it's completely different, which we've known. We've known every year. Really, the only comparable thing about either one of these players is that they're both, long two-way guys with insane potential and productivity. But yeah, it looks so much different on a given night where, Kawhi has 25 and Paul George has, 32, or he just had a season high. It looks notably different between those two players. And I think that it still speaks to, a lot of people, I feel like, kind of would lump those players into like the same mold. But I think stylistically, especially now with Harden, the Clippers really have a lot more looks and a lot of different ways that they can hurt you. That I don't feel like is maybe as acknowledged in how varied that can be.
Yeah, they have a ton of options and different ways to use guys within those options when they're on the court. It's definitely layered. I saw this from the obligatory Justin Russo fly-by-night shout out that we give in every single show.
Montreal's finest.
He comes up with some good numbers here.
Yes,
but Kawhi on this season
cooking those
right
up in the lab.
Kawhi's at 52, 44, 88 shooting splits on the season, right? Amazing, incredible. If you go back to, I'm guessing he pulled this from the last 3 months of last season into this year, over 74 games, Kawhi Leonard is at 52, 46, 89 splits.
Jesus.
Over a 72-game stretch. He's becoming effing Steph Curry. The volume isn't there, but the efficiency is unbelievable from the outside. And as good as Paul George has been with those catch-and-shoot three-pointers this year, as opposed to last year when he was just shooting 38% on them, and this year he's at 49%, Kawhi's also up big from 42% last year on catch-and-shoot threes. He's at 48% this season. It's the Harden effect. He's elevating everyone, and you're seeing all these high-efficiency stat lines each and every night out there. And that, to me, has created the biggest margin for error for this team, where they can miss 9 free throws against OKC, which is unbelievable, and still find a way to win the game because they hit 20 three-pointers. They absorbed 16 three-pointers made by OKC on just 34 attempts. They hit 20. They missed 9 free throws. They go on a 14-2 run to end the ball game, and you get this score where they win by 11 in a really tight back-and-forth affair.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see. And it's funny. I've, as we talk about the amount of catch-and-shoot threes that Paul George has gotten more of, it reminded me of his quote when he talked about Doc's coaching when he was on the All the Smoke podcast a couple years ago. He said, Doc was trying to play me as a Ray Allen or JJ Redick. All pin downs. I could do it, but that ain't my game. Because they have James Harden now and there's a better point guard to facilitate these things and keep it working, it is his game now. And he has embraced it. Harden had to adjust and PG had to adjust too, right? We talked about, Harden had the more extreme example of not taking catch and shoot threes to the full extent. But PG had to get a little used to it too, right? Like you have some good numbers in here, Adam. Just the amount of catch and shoot threes percentage-wise has gone up so much for PG.
Yeah, it's up about 15% from last season. And he's always been capable of this stuff. I don't know if Russo had that too, but
I just saw your name. That's so funny.
It's good. Will Updike. Too good. So yeah, just the way he's been able to blend in, because there was real concern that could he get lost in the shuffle somehow with him being more of a third option, a self-imposed third option, if he wasn't aggressive enough now with James Harden and his scoring prowess, with Kawhi Leonard and the way he's been playing. Would Paul George be able to stay aggressive? Because that's always been the concern. An aggressive Paul George is my favorite Paul George. When he is in attack mode, you are at your best as a team. And that hasn't happened really at all outside of, the first 5 games with James Harden and him, in that Dallas game where he said he was trying to do the little things, but he's killing that. He's done with that. Right. So I'm really proud of the way he's playing. He's having one of his best seasons. All 3 of these guys, I think, legitimately have cases, of course, to be an all-star. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, James Harden. The numbers, the classic traditional box score numbers with James Harden aren't large because he's only taking 11 shots per game. But he's got a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. And then when you just think about impact and look at some of the advanced numbers and how much he's made everyone else better around him, impact wise, I think he's deserving of an all-star vote.
An impact all-star, if you were. Adams impact all-stars.
It
Well, it's
doesn't
like-
really it doesn't really work that way, but I'm with you. I
Look,
agree with the sentiment.
Sometimes when there are super teams and you see like, okay, Draymond Green, are his numbers big? No, but he was an all-star still. Even back with Chris Bosh with the Miami Heat, he was an all-star still. With the Boston Celtics and their big four, they had all them being all-stars before. I think it happened with Detroit one year back when they had, Rasheed Wallace around 04, 05. It's happened if you are also getting a ton of wins. So I think it's going to come down to where they are at seeding-wise when the all-star voting ends. If they're a top 2 seed in the West, I think there's a very good chance a lot of people look at it and say, oh, this is the James Harden effect. He's helped turn this thing around, and they're having one of their best regular seasons. It's not a coincidence. All these guys' numbers are up, and that could be the thing that puts them over the top, but not going to be easy.
I think also, too, Harden, Draymond Green is disliked, but the Warriors have such a giant fan base, too. People hate James Harden, which I like, not for no real reason, which I think hurts his case, too, which sucks.
Guy flew from Taiwan to see him.
I know.
You guys see that?
Yeah, he gave given his relationship with China, I wonder what happens from that, if anything, but we'll see. That's a different topic for a different podcast. They got the Paul George, the extension. We've kind of alluded to it here. Will, when do you think I knew it was going to be a TV show ribbon there. What we've heard, we heard the quote from James Harden. He wants to retire a Clipper, which is like, cool, sure. Right. Let's get this.
He also did bring up, he wanted the same thing on his last teams.
Right. Yeah. This Paul George extension, it doesn't have to get done at any time, but I guess selfishly, I would like it done sooner rather than later, so we know what we can give James Harden. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think from a long-term perspective, it makes sense to get it done earlier. And obviously you want to see that deal done. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but it's not like the Clippers really have any other choice. We know that at least the Paul George contract is coming, likely gonna move, mountains or whatever they have to do to get Harden in there as well. I guess the thing with maybe waiting to do it right is you get the Kawhi one out of the way, right? You get the fan base, sold on the idea that, you're going to have a big three going into it. I think that's really important, especially with all the Intuit, I don't want to say propaganda, but propaganda that we've been seeing lately.
Propaganda,
it's propaganda, but it's propaganda, but that's fine. I'm with it. I'm with the propaganda. I'm part of the Clippers propaganda machine. But I think beyond that, look, maybe you wait on Paul George because let's say you don't have a lot of flexibility between where you're at and the second apron, which is effectively a hard cap at this point. If you know what that number is, and that's not the number that James Harden was really thinking about, do you want to continue the rest of the season with a guy who, I'm not saying that he would be, but that has, once again, the potential to create a rift in the locker room, to create something like that. I also think you got to be wondering about what this injury looks like for Ivica Zubac. You got to be thinking about what the rest of the roster looks like as well. So on one hand, yes, I very much want to see the Paul George deal signed, sealed, delivered. But I understand at the same time, why it might be taking longer and why there might actually even be benefits to waiting and seeing with a couple things, because if you are in the very fortunate situation where you are able to retain all three moving forward, you are in a pickle. So I think it makes sense to test your options and test the waters before you commit to even 2/3 of it, right?
I'm just glad people are at the point where they want to see a Paul George deal gets done because, I'm old enough to remember back when they wanted him traded for Scoot Henderson and they could just reload around Scoot and Kawhi, and that would somehow be a championship-ready team. I think Scoot's shooting about 35% from the field his rookie year. I don't know. Well, you got a lot of talk about that during the summer, but I guess that's over with. I'm happy for Paul George. I hope he's a long-time Clipper. I wouldn't be surprised if the deal gets done, anytime soon here during the season. It's great to see him kind of come into his own and find the best version of himself while not even necessarily always being the number one or the number two, but he can affect the game so much being a number three because he's talked about it post game where the third best player is guarding me most nights. So it's pretty easy out there.
Right.
And that is the problem. And when I talk about the unsolvable problem that the Clippers are creating, just pick your poison. How do you want to lose this game? Do you want to lose it by double teaming Kawhi? Do you want to lose it by playing them straight up and letting them ISO and go to work on you with these great isolation players? Do you want to leave Harden alone and not double or not pick him up and try to slow down that pick and roll and just let him shoot, go under it? I don't know what you do against this team, and that's what makes them so difficult to beat right now. Now there's injuries going on. We'll talk more about that, and they make it a little bit easier to beat on one end of the court soon. But I am very happy with the results, as everyone should be. 23-7 last 30 games, nobody better. 18 wins in their last 22 ball games going back to December 1st. And like, there's a ton of work to be done, but the fact that they can still get better and you don't feel like they've peaked. No one's like, oh man, we got to bottle this up and just bring it into the playoffs. There's some of that, sure, but they could still grow within the regular season. There is still time to improve right now and figure out even more wrinkles and become more multiple in the way you can beat teams, and just finding more ways to beat your opponent than they have ways to beat you tends to lead to a lot of success.
Tighter defense consistently, I think is
Sure.
something that's going to look a lot different for this team. And we've seen flashes of it. We've even seen it win them games in that OKC game, but we haven't seen it as dialed in as I think that it can be, and at the level that it will 100% need to be if they're going to make a deep playoff run. If they're going to get past a Denver or something like that, like they're going to have to find some different ways to slow teams down, and there's no stopping a lot of these guys. But so some of the easy transition stuff, there's some pretty easy things to iron out, and then there's rotation wise and scheme wise things that they can figure out and tighten up a little bit, which I think will take longer.
I mean, over the last 15 games, well, they had the number one offense. They're 23rd defensively over that time.
Yeah.
I think most people would say that's a little bit shocking. I think if you take out 2 games, though, without Kawhi Leonard, the Boston game and the OKC game on the road, that vaults them back into being a top 10 defense. Like, they were so bad in just those 2 games in a 15-game sample size that you take those out and they're back to being top 10. But
the defense did suffer a giant loss with the Ivica Zubac news. We're going to talk about kind of how we thought Plumlee looked as a starter and which side of the ball is more affected with Zoo's absence coming up after this break. If you're listening, the ads have been loud for some people. If that's been the case for you, go ahead and turn it down. We got ads and then some Zoo talk and some roster talk coming up in 3, 2, 1.
All right, so welcome back into Clips and Dip. We talked a little bit about the great season that Kawhi and Paul George are having in tandem this year. Now we're talking about some not so good news on the season, as we are currently maybe half a week, not even a full week, into the 4 weeks that Ivica Zubac is expected to be out, and that's at a minimum. We saw Mason Plumlee in the starting lineup against OKC. There was some good. I think, we're all in agreement defensively. It's going to be an issue for the Clippers without that anchor. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think? I mean, what side of the ball is most hurt? I think that it's pretty obvious. I think that we have a couple guys who can do some like 80% pretty consistently of what Zubac can do offensively. Defensively, I don't think anybody is close. Not close, not particularly close, if I'm being honest. Not a knock on either guy, because Zoo has been really, really good this season. I would say he's been, easily top 15, probably top 10 center in the league. So they got their work cut out for them. I don't know. Where are you at, Chuck? Where are you at on this loss? Is it over?
Okay, it's
God, I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, whew, man. I do not think it's over. I think we saw, I think I was really encouraged by obviously the win against OKC. Ty Lue had very little time to kind of prepare. Even the first game, or sorry, the loss against Minnesota, Ty Lue had so little time to prepare for Zoo being out for that game. And we still were able to scheme up some stuff that made it harder for the Timberwolves than they wanted it to be, right? Like we almost ended up winning that game. It was great. He got some more time. We played very well against the Thunder. We saw Plumlee come out and be incredibly efficient, with some juice after his return. But it's the defensive side of the ball. You're right. Like by a mile is what I think Clippers fans should be watching more for when Zoo is out, right? Like, let's see what happens to that start, that starting five net rating over these 4 weeks, right? Like I have no doubt that it's still going to be a positive net rating, but I don't know if I think it's what, like plus 14 or something right now, or in that range. Like I don't expect it to be like that, but Mason we've talked about, the timing of this stuff, and Zoo talked about it to Tomer Azarli over at Clutch Points, how this could have happened in the playoffs. It's going to happen closer to the playoffs. We're getting Plumlee back when Zoo goes down. So this is really unfortunate. It's a reevaluation in 4 weeks, but I'm excitedly nervous to see what Ty Lue cooks up on the defensive end, because you can't play the same defense with Plumlee as you can with Zoo. They just guard differently, right? So I don't know, Adam.
I think that's part of the reason he went with Terrence Mann in the fourth quarter against OKC, just because you don't have the backline defense. You have to be better at the point of attack. It also provided more switchability. They would hunt Norman Powell. Granted, he was 2 for 10, I think, in that game, but still, it's Norman freaking Powell shooting 58% in fourth quarters and 55% from three. You trust him in late game situations, and they went with Terrence Mann, so maybe more of him, more of Amir Coffey out there. Russ has to bring it defensively at the point of attack, and I thought he had some good possessions against SGA. I was watching that matchup closely. But there is no way to replace someone as good as Ivica Zubac, who has been an unsung hero, who is kind of in that thankless profession type situation where, he only stands out when he plays bad, like an offensive lineman sometimes, because people just expect him. Oh, he better dunk that. I mean, well, yeah, he should be blocking all those shots. It's absurd. But if you look at defensive field goal percentage within 6 feet, he's only giving up shots within 6 feet 50% of the time. They're only shooting 50% within 6 feet of the rim against him. You take that versus Daniel Tice. He's at 57% in that area, which is kind of solid for a guy who's 6'8". But they're shooting 7% better within 6 feet. Mason Plumlee, I went back to last year when he was in that starting role, playing more minutes with the Charlotte Hornets. He was giving up shots at 60%. So there's a 10% chasm difference there between Ivica Zubac and his rim protection versus Mason Plumlee. Anyone who falls in love with reverse dunks and some of the passing and ball handling of Mason Plumlee, which is all great. I love Big Plum. He's one of the best backup bigs in the league and could start for some teams, obviously. What you are missing with Ivica Zubac cannot be duplicated and is far more important than those things. That's why he's been an elite rim protector for his career with the Clippers. He's only given up 52% at the rim. He has been like this. It's not a one-year thing where all of a sudden he turned things around and has been this defensive stalwart. He's always been Mr. Reliable in that area. This year, we've just seen him more on the offensive end, working with James Harden in the pick and roll, and that's going to be missed too, guys. Now, I do think Mason Plumlee's always been good in the pick and roll because he was brought in with Brooklyn with Darren Williams,
right?
Before his ankles fell off and he got cankles or whatever. Mason Plumlee's played with LaMelo. He's played with pick and roll guys. He's adept at it, and he was 5 of 5 in that game from the field for, I think, 14 points against OKC. And I think James Harden found him for at least a couple of easy ones. So defensively, they got to do it collectively. They got to be better at the point of attack. You got to take up the challenge of staying in front of your man. Kawhi, I don't think he can be any better than he has been on backline defense, which has also been vital for this team.
Yes, totally.
That block on SGA is my favorite play of the season to this point. I just think it speaks to what Kawhi Leonard's all about, and a little bit of poetic justice or whatever. It's SGA versus the Clippers and all these things. It was a big moment, 2-point game. And then the Clippers ended up blowing them out because PG-13 was so hot. But defensively, everybody has to raise their level of play. Offensively, it's going to be interesting. I think they're still going to light teams up.
Yeah, right. Like offensively, I'm like, sure, steady as she goes for like not totally, but a lot of the time, right? Like Plumlee's a decent passer. He's going to be, like you said, he's going to be good in the role. There's been a bunch of talk. Zach Lowe mentioned he's hearing the Clippers are looking for a backup center or a tweener forward, which I don't really think surprises anybody. Kelly Olynyk has been brought up a couple times by him, but he mentions he's not sure what Ainge's asking price would be. Kelly Olynyk has 1 year left at $12 million. What are you thinking? PJ and Bones work straight up for Kelly Olynyk. If we want to get PJ Tucker off the team and if they valued Bones, but we don't know what Ainge wants, probably some picks. I guess. What do you value Kelly Olynyk at, Will? I don't think you'd part with the 2030 for him, but where would you stuff some seconds? Some people were talking crazy on Twitter. Would you stuff some seconds with PJ and Bones if they wanted that?
No.
Skeleton
You're getting a young player and PJ Tucker.
Okay.
Maybe a second.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think like that trade in a second. It's like, sure.
I think it's.
His minutes become weird because Tice is here too. Like we have 3 center. I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, I like the idea. It's definitely some interesting depth. He can kind of stretch the floor, but like, how much do you really see him playing in a playoff scenario with another center on the floor?
Sure, yeah. And we're not moving Tice to the 4. Please don't tweet at us that they should do Tice and another center out there. Adam, where are you at on Kelly Olynyk?
I like Olynyk. I think against a team like the Lakers, he'd be very useful in a playoff setting if that was a first-round matchup because they like to go big. And, Christian Wood, AD, Olynyk, Zubac, or Plumlee or somebody like that. I'm a fan. I am because he can shoot it from the outside. Problem is Utah's playing so damn well.
Right.
Are they going to be sellers at this point? Or do they want to look like they're sellers? Also, when you throw Bones in there, that hurts my heart. I don't like hearing that. I don't like thinking about that. I know it may take someone that you got to give to get that you don't want to let go, but I'm hoping it's second-round picks and PJ Tucker.
I think the Tucker thing would be a little easier to stomach if it weren't for that extra year because you're not saving any money. It's just an easier sell to me if that wasn't the situation. But there's I mean,
maybe Brandon Boston. Maybe I don't like throwing any names out there, to be honest. I don't want any Clippers to leave, but in this hypothetical that was brought up by Zach Lowe, who I did talk to the other night. I shook his hand. I was like, I fucking love your commentary. He was all self-deprecating. Oh, get out of here.
He's great. Yeah, he's chill.
Yeah, he's awesome. And he loves the advanced numbers and all the things that GMs and coaches look at nowadays. Yeah. So I like Olynyk. I don't know what it would take to get him. I hope not much.
Yeah, so that was the other part. Like someone, Will, you mentioned the PJ Tucker thing. I can't remember where that report came from, but there was like some scuttlebutt that I saw around that he would maybe like the Wizards would be open to trading for him and buying him out. But in that scenario, it's either like the Clippers are attaching someone who's good and cheap, like I hate to say it, Brandon Boston Jr. or Amir Coffey, or they're taking on a bad contract from Washington, who happens to have a bad contract in Landry Shamet, who has a bad contract, who I completely forgot was on the Washington Wizards. But I don't know how feasible that is. Shamet makes $10 million this year, non-guaranteed $11 million next year, and then a team option the year after that. So, like, I mean, that would be great because he'd just be off the books immediately. But again, I guess I have no idea what the Wizards are doing, but I would be okay with that. I don't know, just for some flexibility.
You're not the only one. That they're in a complete rebuild. I mean, Michael Winger has a plan, no doubt. But yeah, it's a rough, hard rebuild. And Jordan Poole, man, it's
not good.
Been interesting. So that I don't know. If they bought out PJ Tucker, who do you think picks him up? Is that a situation where, like Phoenix getting Eric Gordon, excuse me, and you start to regret
I just don't
losing
know.
that guy?
I don't know how much you're regretting that one.
Oh, no, at this point, not at all.
Yeah. I'd love it if the Suns got him.
Oh, PJ or Eric Gordon?
I think, and I don't know how often it actually happens, but I think that it's like malpractice when a team is like hoarding a player of that level because they just don't want him to go to a competitor. Like, I think that's a pretty shitty move, to be perfectly honest.
I also would love it if the Suns got PJ Tucker.
Yeah.
That would be great for us.
I still think he has utility in the right situation and could give teams trouble at 5 to 10 minutes.
But he may be cursed because Carl Tart has his jersey. He just got his jersey delivered. And the last jersey he got was John Wall. So he may be cursed. He may have the Tart jersey curse.
Does that just mean he's going to be gone, cursed?
Traded.
Yes.
Yeah. No, he's not going to have birds poop on his head randomly or anything like that. He's just going to get,
really thin.
He's not going to lose a bunch of weight.
But as to his utility on a bunch of teams, does he make good pretzels or something? Like what are you referring to?
He's a good defender. He still is a good defender. I know he stopped taking 3-pointers, but I've seen enough with him against Jokic even this year, and then going back to last year with Philly. Like, he can still defend Jokic. He could still defend Zion Williamson. In 5 to 10 minutes, I think in a playoff series, he could help you. I don't know if it's swing a game. What's below a swing? He could carousel. He could
off, help you. I see what you're saying, though.
He can help you. He can help you in the right amount of minutes against the right opponent.
4 minutes against a very bad opponent. Okay, Chris Boucher.
Jokic.
Chris Boucher is the next one. ESPN said PJ in some seconds could maybe get this done, but I'm not sure that's true at all because I think he maybe has a little more value than that. He's got the size and switchability people want. He lacks offensive juice. I don't know if he would play more than PJ. I guess you would be taking Kobe Brown's spot in the rotation. That's whose minutes would be on the line here, right? If they make a trade for anyone this level.
And therefore, Kobe Brown's been out of the rotation for real minutes for weeks now. Amir is locked up in that position. He'd be going back to Toronto. He was there for a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
PJ Tucker. I don't know. I don't exactly know what they're up to either. They're in a soft rebuild situation where they want to compete a little bit, but also get better and get younger. Would they buy him out afterwards? I don't know. I like the move for the Clippers, obviously. Yeah. If they could pull that off.
Yeah, I feel like I don't even want a trade. I know there's these ideas that we need another big four or something like that, but there's no one cheap enough that I think is worth disrupting what the top of the Clippers roster is doing right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. And at this point, I guess it really depends on what the team that you're doing business with is looking for. But Adam said Bones. I think Bones would be a pretty hard give. As much as Amir has really lifted his value.
I would.
You'd have to be getting. I feel like you'd have to be getting back a pretty nice piece.
I'd lose my mind if they
to give up that, because the thing is with this team is we already talked about the contracts for the big three. They're just going to be so limited in what they can do. You need good, cheap players. You need good, cheap players so bad. That's part of the reason that the Warriors were able to establish a dynasty, is because they got they got guys on good contracts. They had really good luck or bad injury luck, however you want to look at it. But this stuff matters, and it matters with an aging team that needs to continue a sort of championship window. It's really difficult to me to foresee giving up that sort of young talent. Even look, I know Bones isn't playing right now. He's not in the rotation, but that doesn't mean he's not in the rotation next year, or that there's not moments for him, because every year 2-1-3 plus now Harden gets a little bit older, and I don't expect them to replicate this absolutely incredible season that they've had for the rest of those 3-4 years. I'm not saying anything negative about them, but like, as you get up there, 35, it's gets a lot harder to do, man. Like even for LeBron, like even for the people who have had the most longevity, like that's a big ask. And the way that you can take some of that off is obviously by having guys who can step up in their place. But when you're this limited by the second apron, like they got to be cheap guys too. Like it's even harder. Not only do they have to be good guys who are younger than your stars, they also got to be not making a lot of money.
And boys, that skeleton key nickname didn't come out of nowhere. Bones was on his way. You look at the preseason and then the first 4 games of the regular season, 17, 12, 18, 17. Bones was doing work. Like he was really turning a corner. Everybody, to a man, said he was the one guy that looked different, that made a big leap during training camp. Kawhi Leonard could see it. I think, man, it'd be rough to get rid of Bones. That would be tough on me. I wouldn't do that podcast if it did. I wouldn't talk about
speak on it.
We would still have a camera, but it would just be an empty chair. It'd just be
No, I'll like turn my back in the corner like the guy at the end of Blair Witch, like just standing in the corner.
Blair, I need to revisit Blair Witch. Fantastic.
It's on
fantastic
Criterion right now.
movie.
I'm
Really?
going to revisit it.
Such a great movie. Okay, now more Blair Witch talk. No. I want to put, this is something we've never done on this show. I would like to put the kibosh on something. If you guys would like to hear me out.
We can't talk about James Harden again. Are we back to that, or
this idea I saw first on Twitter from Clipper Spencer.
Put the kebab on it. Do more.
From Clipper Spencer, the head of the Batum Battalion. Great guy, great Clippers fan. And then someone who only communicates to Will and I, who is a fan of the podcast via LinkedIn messages, sent us this idea too. Draymond Green does not need to be a Clipper. Stop telling us that. It doesn't make any sense. How does
that work? How would that work contractually?
Contractually, he's a
making
nightmare.
So much money.
Yeah.
He's making like 24 or 25 or something like that. Basketball wise, with what the Clippers are doing right now, you want to trade for Draymond Green?
There's already like so many rotation players that he couldn't play next to just because
he's
of
coming
like
off
the
the
offensive
bench.
issues.
Or we're going to change the starting lineup where he's the starting 4 now and we change the whole starting lineup. Like it's
but if he's coming off the bench, it's what with Tice and Russ at some point. Like I just don't. I'm a huge fan of Draymond's career, but
80% of it, sure. But the other 20%,
all of it
blows to the head. But no, Adam, am I wrong? Like, am I wrong to propose a kibosh on this idea?
I don't think so. If we're going to put a kibosh on James Harden talk this summer when it was a very realistic possibility, I see this as much less of one. He makes $25 million next year, 25 the year after that, 27 the year after that. It's a player option, but I don't know. At that point, he'll be 36, I think. He's making a lot of money. I think he's the type of guy that could help any team, but that is a huge commitment to a team that we were just talking about earlier. Still looks to be signing Paul George and James Harden. We're all expecting that to happen.
Yeah.
I don't see it. It's not that it wouldn't fit or he couldn't help. I just don't see it within the structure of the salary cap happening, really.
It's just, like if any functional, like if you look at the Clippers payroll and you stop at Norm and then you take everyone below Norm because Norm's at like 10, like an 8-for-1 would work, but you're telling me you would want to include anyone Norm and above on that list to trade for Draymond Green? Like, I don't usually react to ideas like this, but I just really don't understand it.
Yeah,
I'm confused.
Shut it down, Chuck. Shut it down.
We're shutting it down. The only way we're going to make sure this doesn't happen is if we convince Carl Tart to buy a custom Draymond Green Clippers jersey. Which would be an all-time bit. Oh, wait, Will. Adam, pitch Adam the idea we had for the Michael Jordan impersonator outside Staples Center.
Oh, okay. So
And then we'll talk about real basketball stuff after that.
If you're from Los Angeles, you're familiar with the Michael Jordan impersonator. He's often outside of games. Also, you just see him on the Metro and stuff sometimes. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I was thinking Charles looks about as much like Larry Bird as that guy does like Michael Jordan. What do you think would happen if Chuck just tossed on the Celtics jersey, went out there and, I don't know, spun a basketball on his finger?
That's a fun bit.
A lot of Lakers fans saying "fuck the Celtics."
Oh yeah, well,
they're gonna be in your face. It
well,
won't matter. They'll still find you.
We could do it at a Clippers.
A lot of old white dudes though want their picture taken with you.
Yeah, that's true. I try.
No, you're gonna make like $80 a day, but
yeah, okay. But it's a good bit idea. I think his reaction would be good. It'd be a funny bit.
Yeah. Also, his reaction, like when just Larry Bird rolls
me
up.
walking out, just full kit, like long sock, like yeah, it'd be very fun. All right, coming up,
correct shoes.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing the weapons, the Connor what he used to wear. All right, coming up, we're talking the wall, the Intuit Dome wall propaganda, as Will Updike would say. Coming up after this ad break. The ads have been loud for some people. If that's been your case, go ahead and turn it down. We got ads and then Intuit stuff coming up in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome back into Clips and Dip, episode 42 of season 2. I'm Adam Oslin. We got Chuck Mockler and Will Updike here. No Clippers games till Sunday. They have an early one going up against the Brooklyn Nets. Another sloppy second situation where the Lakers get them first on a Friday night. But coming in August, the Intuit Dome will already be hosting musical events, concerts, midway through August, but more importantly, they're hosting the AllStar Game in 2026.
Hell yeah.
And it sounds like it is a Clippers exclusive, no features. It's not them and the Lakers sharing AllStar hosting responsibilities. It's just on the Clippers at Intuit Dome, which speaks to where this franchise has come, or how far it's come, Chuck.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty incredible.
Also, can you imagine if they were trying to coordinate events between Staples Center and the Intuit Dome? Like, just with the traffic and stuff, I think it would be a nightmare.
Sure.
It'd be one of the worst All-Stars on record.
You could go Forum and Intuit Dome, but yeah.
We were talking with Pavi of Hoops and Brews. Shout out Hoops and Brews. Shout out Pavi. About how funny it is for all the people who are going to visit LA for the first time. And be like, All-Star Weekend, let's do it. And like be staying in Sherman Oaks. And then be like, yeah, be like, all right, how are we getting down there? Like, let's lift on over. What's it going to take? 15, 20 minutes? Anyway, I'm very excited for this. It's incredible the Clippers are hosting this. It's really cool they're doing it outright. It's a nice test run, I guess, and like really cool spectacle to show off the arena, which what Ballmer wants to do. But yeah, the Olympics basketball is going to be there too. It's going to be sick. Hope I can go. At the very least, I guess I'll be in the parking lot or something. But yeah, I'm excited. Will, are you going to get into it?
Because you'll be doing your Larry Bird impersonator there. You'll be in the parking lot.
I'll be like, I'm going to take 3.3 threes a game. That's what I'm going to do. Will, how excited for the Intuit Dome are you? Has the propaganda gotten to you yet?
I'm very excited.
I like that you're like in a gulag.
Can barely hold in my excitement.
They've been pushing the wall a lot. I don't know if you're listening to this podcast and you're not familiar with the wall. It's a group. What is it, like 5,000? Does it hold 5,000 people? It's like the standing room only, Clippers fans only section. I didn't realize
they take you out back and shoot you if you're sitting there without Clippers gear.
They say, come on back. Ballmer got inspired by this after being at Kawhi's jersey retirement at SDSU, apparently. I saw an SDSU piece floating around, which is pretty cool.
Doesn't LAFC do this?
Yes, they absolutely do with 3252, or the 3252, excuse me. It's huge in soccer. I saw Waz tweeted, someone was like, yeah, like I like how you pointed out they ripped this idea off from LAFC. And his response was really great. He's like, some ideas should be ripped off. This is a great idea.
Oh,
this is going to make basketball awesome.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make the idea any less good. I'm behind this. I think that last game versus the Thunder was like one of the more lively Clippers crowds
started slow.
Seen that I've seen in a while.
Playoff atmospheres, dude. They've been playing, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, like post that playoff run where Kawhi went down in 21, I feel like that was like one of the more active crowds I've seen. So I think that Clippers fans deserve it. I think that it'll be. I think that it's great for morale. I think that it's. I think that it's a great idea.
It's gonna rock when it's full. Adam, your thoughts on the wall?
I mean, being down on it because it's not new. It's like, well,
neither is basketball. Neither is a stadium. Frankly,
should they get a new arena then?
They've been done to death.
Everyone gets new arenas eventually. This is nothing new here. Nothing's new under the sun. Come on. It's cool. It's going to be at least somewhat unique to the NBA. Isn't that what's important? Having that college-like atmosphere there in that one section of the crowd. I think
that's
it's
like
really
what everyone
cool.
says about Utah. Like part of the thing is like that's a stadium that does nothing but basketball. Yeah. It's designed in a way that's like, you know, it's advantageous for the home fans, and it's like an extra kind of fun thing for the spectators.
Yeah, it's a real home court advantage. They are good there regardless of what type of year they're having. They typically are always tough at home. Same with Denver, but there's more of an altitude thing going on there. But I just like any home court advantage within the rules that you can manufacture. I'm all for it. And so keeping it all Clippers fans, it sounds like they're going to be able to pull that off. I wasn't sure about the Chuck mark and everything. And then it's like, oh, you got to buy like a Clippers jersey or something like that. Prove you're a fan. That works. That's cool.
All right. That part I'm not as big of a fan of.
Well, they don't have to buy Clippers gear. They just have to send a photo of them in Clippers gear.
Yeah.
But if you
haven't had one.
You can also purchase Clipper Vision, and that will help. I don't know. Carl Tart has his Chuck mark, so if you want your Chuck mark, go and do.
Do you get an honorary one?
No, I don't get anything. Maybe I'll get an honorary Wet Willie, like Chuck the Condor gave that World War II veteran that one time. That story cannot die. It's the most insane thing a mascot has ever done. They were holding that man up, and Chuck the Condor gave him a fucking Wet Willie.
You can get an honorary bad back because the Larry Bird impersonator.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, I inherited that. Yeah, I was thinking part of the Larry Bird impression would be I would just be laying on my stomach on a towel, just on my elbow.
Yeah. Be Team USA, 92 Olympics, Larry Bird.
Old. Yeah. Or we were thinking a funny bit would be like someone goes out to play, you know, the Michael Jordan guy one-on-one, and then immediately gives a help, help, help. And then someone from the crowd comes in with a double, you know, a little soft double.
You should be like, hey, you want to play one-on-one, Bird versus Magic, and then pull out the video game and be like, yeah, we're going to do it like this.
Let's do this. He'd probably beat my ass in that too. All right, one final thing before we send Clippers fans on their way. Paul George is so close to saying Powell Rangers on Podcast P. Instead of Powell Rangers, he's saying Power Clippers, which makes me want to drive a nail into the back of my hand. But we're right there.
Tell you what, for whatever reason, they don't have as good of a marketing department as this podcast.
No, they don't. Hey, you got the Green Ranger in there. R.I.P. that guy.
This Power Rangers Green Ranger stand-up, very rare, and did cost me a pretty penny a few years ago. No joke.
Is that a pandemic buy?
Yeah, that's right.
I know a quarantine buy when I see one. I got a couple of quarantine buys in my den right now.
This made me happy for at least a week. This was my friend. This was my volleyball from Castaway that I talked to.
Well, I hope you hit it with some bleach or something. How do we get him to say Power Rangers? How do we do it? Does Norm have to go on the show?
He's been on. But that was before.
Go on again? Right. Does he have to go on again? He's so close. Power Clippers is insane.
We got to get one of the co-hosts. I don't know if Paul George. Somebody here. It's as simple as this.
Dallas
Tomer, Joey Lynn, Farbod Essenshari,
calling people
Law Murray, Andrew Greif. Somebody bring up the numbers with the Powell Rangers death lineup and call it the Powell Rangers death lineup. And that will have it gain traction. Just ask somebody a question post-game about it. It's going to happen at some point.
This is why I'm mad that Will and I aren't allowed in the locker room anymore, because we would definitely be like, have you heard the Power Rangers thing going on? Those were the kind of locker room conversations.
I've heard way worse questions.
I know, but we're not tier 1 anymore. I also one time got to ask, do you remember when Patrick Patterson took that 3 against the Blazers and that guy like kicked him in the head? He like jumped super weird. I got to ask Patrick Patterson if that was the first time he'd ever been kicked in the head on a 3-point attempt, which was pretty fun. No, we need the Power Rangers. We're so close. Eric Bui did such a good drawing of it. It's going to have a shirt soon. But we're close.
I remember at Media Day when I brought up all of Mason Plumlee's nicknames just so I could get to saying Big Plum. I was like, Plum Dog Millionaire, Point Plum, my favorite, Big Plum.
Big Plum.
People afterwards were like, that was a great question. That was awesome. Because they're being asked all these little, the same thing over and over again, just rephrased. Give them something different. Ask them about the Power Rangers. It's a real thing. They're like a plus 62 in 75 minutes or something like that on the court.
I love that the Power Ranger is still here for this conversation because that adds credence to it. We're real about this. We also, we have Power Ranger comics that we need to get to. Got a very friendly message from Ryan Perro. He has them for us. Anyway, anything else? I know Adam was very excited. Will, as we send these people on their way for 2 more-ish days of No Clippers basketball, where could they find us if they wanted to maybe listen more, older episodes? I guess.
Yeah, you can find this episode, all our episodes, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Deezer, Amazon Music. If you check us out over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you could leave us a little rating or review. That would help this show out. If you want to get the whole thing unfiltered, just the whole darn podcast, you got to check it out over on YouTube. That's at Clippers Podcast. Yeah, thank you so much to everybody who's rocking with us. I know it's a weird long break, but soon we're going to be having games like more than every other day. So
quite
just
literally.
Find a friend during this break, guys. It's all good.
We're going to be doing, we do have the brunch battle on Sunday. Will and I are going to be live on YouTube after that game, kind of hanging out, shooting the breeze. Adam might pop in too, doing a double dip after the game for that as well. Probably, maybe, who knows? We're kicked off. Adam, do we got a positive thing we want to end on for these Clippers fans?
I didn't get to my blessings in disguise part.
So
I'm gonna throw it on here. If Carlo Jimenez brought this up, Chuck and I talked about it the other night. If Mason Plumlee doesn't get hurt against the Knicks with that ridiculous fly towards knee Superman move by Julius Randle that was incredibly dangerous, if that didn't happen, they wouldn't have Daniel Tice right now. They would not have Big Plumlee and Daniel Tice to help figure this thing out and hold down the fort without Ivica Zubac. Sometimes it feels like things happen for a reason.
Scary.
Zubac talked about this in an exclusive with Tomer earlier, but if this had happened in March during the 17 games, if this had happened in April during the playoffs, that would be much worse than the timing of it happening now while you have 4 days off with plenty of time to start to figure out some more schemes of how to work around not having Big Zoo collectively. So, I don't know. It just seems like the basketball gods are at least giving the Clippers a glance, just looking out for them slightly this season. Even the schedule hasn't felt quite as treacherous, but I know it's coming. So good things. Even in an injury, you can see the silver lining sometimes with this team. And maybe it'll make Zoo finally get over this calf injury that he's had the last 2 seasons he's been dealing with it. He just actually needs to get some real time off, which he's never had before. Mr. Reliable. So that's how I'm looking at it. Glass half full all the time. You know me.
Fantastic. Glass half full, Adam Oslin, Will Updike, Chuck Mockler signing off. We thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with you soon on Sunday. And as always, let's go Clips.